In this video I'm going to be putting the gear case together. That consists of putting the breather gear in there, the cam, setting the end plate for both, and then putting the cam cover on. So first thing I want to do is I like to document everything I do, is I'll measure the gasket thickness. So I'll measure it in a few different places. Looks like 44. 44. 44. Okay. So 44 thousandths. And I'll jot that down on here for now. That's my gasket thickness. Okay. So first thing I'll do is I'll set the breather gear in play. Get some assembly lube on here. Now this manual says the end plate should be between 1 and 16 thousandths. That's accounting for the gasket crush of 6 thousandths. And I have a set of shims here. They range in size from 100 to 170. Okay. And so this is an S&S breather gear. It's a 30 over. The hole was bored out. So, alright, that's in there. Alright, now let's measure some of these shims. That's a 140. So let's start out with 140. Let me zoom in on this. Okay, let me find my, let's start with the 10 thousandths. Here's a 140. Put that on there. And now I like to stay away from all these raised ridges of the gasket. So I'll make it right about there is where I'll measure it. Flat to flat. So I'll hold that there. I'll measure the end plate. The gap between the straight edge and the shim will be your end plate. So that won't fit. 10 thousandths won't fit. So that to me is already too small. Too small of a gap, too big of a shim. So let's go with 130. Yep, so here's a 130. So, same thing. Got a 130 on there. Go flat to flat. So that fits. Oh, it's a 10 thousandths. Let's try, say, 15. Okay, here's a 15. Okay, that fits. How about a 16? It's tight, so think 15, 16 thousandths is where we're at. Let's try 15 one more time. Yeah. So 15 minus 6, 9 thousandths end play. So that's within spec. Now I have the manual on here, on this tablet, and it says yeah, 1 to 16. Okay. So we're at 9, and I'll document that again. So I document that. So I use a 130 breather gear shim. And I used a 15 thousandths filler gauge. Which results in a 9 thousandths. Oops. 9 thousandths end play for breather. Excuse my chicken scratch writing, but I'll rewrite this on a build sheet later. Okay, so we got that breather gear end play settled. Now we'll do the cam. So, and I've done this before on this same cam and gasket. So I bought a set of cam shims. Came with a 50, 60, and 70, and I ended up needing a 65. So I had to order one, and it just came. So that's my 65 right here. Alright. So let's give this a shot. Put the shim on. Put the thrush washer on. Put some more lube on it. And all the lobes. Some on the end of the shaft. Okay. Oops. Right now, there's timing marks on here. So, gotta make sure it's timed right. Alright, so it's first I'll get the pinion gear. The timing marks on the pinion gear going upwards. It's right there. Okay. Let's pull this one out first. Make sure that's my 130 breather gear shim. Here's a 65 going in. So timing marks. So here's this one. The two aligned. Okay. One tooth over. And there it is. Oops. Now I get my breather timed correctly. Right there. Just to make sure. Just remember to check again. That's a 130. So I got my cam shim Either should. Now I'll get the cam cover on. I got the new cam still in there. Alright, let's put some assembly lube on these bushings. Just a tad bit. Get them on the inside. Probably blocking the camera. Okay. Well, first thing I want to show is I got a new set of bolts for the cam cover, and I wasn't sure what bolt goes in what hole. So just to double check, I have the depth gauge here. What I did was just measure the depth of each hole, compare with the bolts. So that's 1 inch right there. That's more than enough. I think this one is the shortest one, the shallowest one. Yep, so that bottoms out at less than 1 inch. It's right about 1 inch with a gasket. And so what I did was put the bolt through and just make sure here it is. Make sure that's not going to go past, and it's not. So you just go around and measure each hole and find the bolt that doesn't go too far while maintaining enough threads. Probably about twice the amount of threads to the bolt diameter is a good rule of thumb. So put the cam cover on now. Got the gasket on. Wipe it off down here one more time before I put the bracket on. But now I'll just put on a few to get it snugged up. And then measure the end plate. And I'll try to get that on video and reorient the camera. Just snug. Final torque sequence, your final torque values are 90 to 120 inch-pounds. Oh, it's going to be snug for now. I'm going to reposition the camera so you guys can see. Okay. 10 to 15 is a good number. There's 11. There's 12. There's 13. Oh, 12 thousandths. write that down. So I use a 65 cam shim, and that resulted in a 12 thousandths cam end play. Now I'll get the rest of the bolts on there and torque everything down. Alright, so now I'll go 90 to 120 foot-pounds, or no, sorry, inch-pounds, rather. So it's like a torque wrench. I'll set it to 25, 40, 55, 70, 85, 100, and I'll go 110. Lock that in place. Okay. And the manual doesn't call it a torque pattern. It just says doomed to 9120 inch-pounds. So I'll go in a store pattern. Okay. Should be all of them. Yep. Okay, everything's set to 110 inch-pounds, and that wraps that up.